We are 48 hours into OpenAI's browser launch, and hackers are already having a field day. Security researchers have already cracked Atlas in less than 24 hours. There's clipboard hijacking, memory poisoning, and credential theft. Meanwhile, Qualcomm just threw down the gauntlet against NVIDIA with new chips launching next year, and Elon launched yet another Wikipedia competitor that has crushed it on day one.
So the bunch of tech CEOs are now promising that you'll only work 3 days a week while AI takes your job. But what nobody's talking about and what is that we're hitting a massive power crisis that could derail the entire AI boom. The infrastructure can't support what's coming. And today we're going to dive into some massive stories that dropped this week that could reshape a lot of tech.
Welcome back to the podcast. Startup Hack and I go live every Tuesday morning where we talk about the latest in tech, business, and finance. And man, do we have some things to talk about with you guys today. Yes, Startup Hack is my father. We are a father and son duo where we take our kitchen table conversations and we bring them to you guys every Tuesday morning. We love doing it. And this is episode 15, so we're ready to rock and roll. Sweet. So let's go ahead. I want to jump right into what we have first, and that's the Atlas browser. One of the biggest things that people are already complaining about is, as we talked about, the security vulnerabilities. When you sign up for Atlas, you have to give it access to your email, your calendar. You have to give it full access to everything. And as much as I love tech, that makes me cringe quite a bit. And it already screams vulnerabilities into my appointments, my calendars, my contacts. And I mean, I can't help but say, if we ever get a Terminator situation where Grok goes rogue and OpenAI starts emailing people on my contacts list, that would be pretty concerning. So what's your take on the first few days of Atlas launching?
You know, I read into Atlas and read the privacy, the permissions that you have to give it, and was like, absolutely no way. I mean, first of all, it was only open to Mac, which is kind of shows how much of a joke of a release it was, to be honest. Because if you're only opening up to one platform in 2025 anymore, like, it's showing that you're just trying to grab articles, and now they're grabbing articles for a whole bunch of different reasons, ones they don't want, but frankly, ones they don't care because OpenAI is that dumb.
Yeah. And do you think, I mean, there's also a few other articles that we've talked that popped up that now it's kind of like a resurgence of the browser wars, that like Microsoft is going to start working on their own AI browser. Do you think that this is just going to be a fancy extension, or do you think these AI browsers are going to be something that we actually use?
I think there'd be a fancy extension for those people who are crazy enough to give it that level of permission. I don't know about you, but like, there's no way I'm feeding all of my contact information into OpenAI. There's no way I'm letting OpenAI send emails for me or set an appointment. And sure enough, for good reasons, because with password hijacking coupled with a whole bunch of email and calendar permissions, like, who knows what could go wrong with that, right? I mean, and yeah. OpenAI is silly enough that they haven't even I assume they've taken it into account and still don't care.
Yeah. So it just kind of turned into a fiasco. And outside of that day one launch and people saying that this is like a game changer, just trying to get clicks, I haven't seen too many people actually using it. Like, I saw more Vision Pro highlights than I've seen Atlas highlights.
Yeah, it says so. Layer X Security, which is a security firm, found that that Atlas was 90% more vulnerable to phishing attacks than Chrome or Edge, and that's not a typo. 90% more likely. So if if a phishing attack comes into your email, AI's ability to detect those phishing accounts are terrible, much lower rates than humans. So if something hits your email and it's going to click on it, and suddenly now you've just subjected your whole network into a phishing attack.
Yeah, it's pretty sketchy. So I want to show you this diagram right on this tab right here. You can kind of see the process of how somebody would be able to, how an attack would play out. The user would log into ChatGPT. The user then is tricked into launching a malicious link by social engineering. The malicious web. Yeah.
So really quick, that second bullet is just meaning somebody sent you an email. That's it. Like,
well, and
hackers just have to send you an email.
Could Atlas click on it?
Yes, that's the whole point. Yes, is that it'll send an email, it'll pick up an email out of yours, and it does a terrible job detecting phishing versus human, and then you have your next bullet point.
Yeah, the malicious web page triggers a CSRF request.
Cross-site request forgery.
Leveraging the fact that the user is already authenticated to inject hidden instructions into ChatGPT's memory without their knowledge. When the user
Yep.
queries ChatGPT for a legitimate purpose, the tainted memories will be invoked, leading to code execution.
Yep. So they can send an email, it triggers it, it loads it into ChatGPT's memory function. So now ChatGPT has that plus all of the contact information and everything, right? And then can run it based off of your permissions that you gave it.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Here you have some more. In tests against over 100 in the wild web vulnerabilities and phishing attacks, Edge managed to stop 53% of them, followed by Google Chrome 47%, and then ChatGPT Atlas only stopped 7%.
Yep. I mean, this is real stuff. And this is part of the reason why you're seeing OpenAI lose, right? We're starting to see more and more of that. I'm actually going to be doing 2 different pieces on my channel this coming week, but there's a race to zero right now. OpenAI knows it's a race to zero, so they keep just throwing crap at the wall like this, and it's just getting worse and worse. Like, they keep releasing worse products. They keep trying to expand more. They keep trying to do, whether it's Sora to, which is going to just open them to just a massive amount of copyright lawsuits, to this kind of a terrible release of a browser that never should have seen the light of day. I mean, anything that's going to run at a 7% success rate for blocking security stuff is horrible. And it's just overall the whole thing. And they keep being like, well, we'll get it better. We'll make it better. And it's like, no, you have to actually do product release management and actually do testing before you release a product. And they just are totally casting all caution to the wind. Meanwhile, Anthropic is just sitting there quietly and just released Skills last week, which is one of the most powerful tools you can use in any of the OpenAI tools, and quickly dominating the corporate space, while OpenAI is becoming the laughing stock of all of the AI.
Yeah, something that we don't have in our notes, but I kind of want to get your take on before we kind of move on from the AI war, which we're always talking about. There's this rumor that we're going to get Gemini 3.0 Pro in the next few days, and that it's going to pass GPT-5 and Claude 4.5. I know that you've been a fan of Gemini Pro. Is this something that you're keeping an eye on?
Yeah, I am. So the thing about it is that 2.5 Pro to 3 is really just a whole bunch of media attention. Google's been very different. They have a little model that they show you in the bottom corner of the chat, and they've been slowly progressing GPT 2.5. Gemini 2.5 Pro, and so 3 isn't going to be like a monumental jump. I think it'll be an incremental jump, just like we've seen before. Google has played the slow and steady to this race, right? Google is one of the first ones to release like an image generator, and they got blasted for it. If you remember, like, it was doing a whole bunch of things like show me George Washington and he was black, and like all these kind of things, and they got blasted for it. And that was really kind of their only misstep. And I think Sundar Pichai just right there immediately said, look, we're only going to release stuff that's really ready. And Google is known for being one of the strictest on security and other things. And so, yeah, with Gemini Pro being a counter example, and Google Chrome, which has long been a cornerstone of the market for a long time, OpenAI is floundering and they're just thrashing.
Yeah, cool. So Gemini Pro, sweet. And then, do you think that any other companies are going to get into these AI browsers? Do you think, or do you think it can become like Chrome extension? Like you mentioned that you think it'd be a Chrome extension, but do you think companies like Google and Microsoft are going to prioritize having more of an AI browser?
So, and to that point, Gemini is slowly infusing it into its browser, slowly. And so it's doing it into its products more than into its browser. And they're smart that way, because a couple of things is that Google knows if they inject it into their browser, the antitrust will fire right up all over again, right? But in this case, they know they can infuse it into their product slowly, and keep good quality, keep good security, right? And so, like, I see the Gemini twinkle in my Gmail box. I see it on Google Drive. I open Google Docs and I see it. Every meeting I join has it. And so Google's slowly infusing it. Normal natural rollouts were like a real software company, unlike OpenAI, which is just thrashing and bouncing around, because 1 week it's Sora and the next week it's a browser, and it's like, dude, pick what you're gonna do and go for it. Like, no one's ever won at going at everything all at once. And even Google has taken just DeepMind's been around for a long time, right? DeepMind's been almost a decade old.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be, I just really don't see it. I mean, I could be totally wrong, but I don't see AI browsers really taking off. I see just the search queries getting better. Because now when I type something into the Chrome browser, like I now expect a little Gemini summary before I start clicking links, which I think that's a much better win.
Yeah. So DeepMind is 15 years old. So look, Google's been doing AI long before AI was a buzzword, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they know they've had good minds on it for a long time. And remember, who's the king of data? There's truly nobody has more data right now than Google.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're right. And I think that the failure of the Atlas browser was, I just don't think it's going to be as useful. I'm seeing companies pull back on a lot of these Chrome extensions now. I was on a Zoom call the other day, and somebody had their little Zoom AI agent hop on, and they actually said it's against company policy to have that, and so they asked them to turn it off.
Yep.
Which I don't know what permissions that those little Zoom agents get, but I thought it was really interesting.
I do it fairly often. I actually, in sensitive conversations, will be like, "Can you please turn that off?" Or I'll actually say, "Hey, let's start the call over, and please don't turn it on this time." And so I actually, that's becoming increasingly, and honestly, everybody who has them, who turns them on. So if you're in the sound of my voice and you turn those on during a meeting, just know that I'm going to end the meeting with you really quick. And it's like, just like we're hearing more and more people do that. People don't want that in garbage in the middle of a meeting, especially in sensitive conversations.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think you're starting to see a little bit of, oh, look, it looks like we have some breaking news. Let's go ahead and let me hop open to this. It looks like OpenAI just announced a restructuring deal that you and I have been talking about. So this is breaking news right now. OpenAI completes restructuring, solidifying Microsoft as major shareholder. There's literally only one paragraph. OpenAI on Tuesday announced it has completed its recapitalization, and its nonprofit will own an equity stake in its for-profit arm that is currently valued at $130 billion. So now I want to figure out what is in the nonprofit and what's in the for-profit. Like, is Atlas going in the nonprofit because it's so trash and they put GPT in the for-profit? I don't know how that's going to break up. You and I knew that this was only a matter of time. It was just how much paperwork went into this one little paragraph right here. I don't know. Do you have any? There's not a ton to react to, but it happened. Let's go ahead and take a look at Microsoft stock, and then you can kind of give me your thoughts on it. In the pre-market here, yeah, I mean, holy cow, Microsoft is already up 3%, which you're moving a $4 trillion company 3%. That's hundreds of billions of dollars. So Microsoft, again, is one of the bigger winners here. And it's interesting that OpenAI was only valued, their for-profit was only valued at 130 billion, because we've seen their private market valuations fluctuate between 4 to 500 billion. Any thoughts?
Yeah, very first thing is that Microsoft took one look at those $500 billion valuations and was like, bull crap. Like, no way. That's total pile of garbage. If you want to feed that to the VCs, go for it. But no way are you worth $500 billion. See, like, like Microsoft sitting there going on the other side of the table going, like, we're an actual company with actual revenue that isn't going to zero, by the way. And like, OpenAI is, so, just this week, Anthropic announced that, or it was announced that Anthropic is on track to reach $9 billion of revenue, which is, arguably, about half of OpenAI's, and they've raised about a quarter of the amount of money, and their burn is under 1/20th of OpenAI's burn rate. Wow. OpenAI is burning cash so fast. So Microsoft is being smart, and they're locking down the deal to try to say, hey, we're at least going to grab as much of the company as we can, because what's going to end up happening is that the company is going to go to zero. It's going to get sold off for parts, and Microsoft wants to try to own as much as possible. And this is the largest stake of anybody out there, is Microsoft, from the early deal that they did. So Microsoft wants to try to get as much, because so much of OpenAI's funding is on leveraged debt right now. And so it's like, when they go to zero, they're going to get, they're going to get taken apart.
I mean, I really hope what you're saying doesn't happen, because we can pull up that map of all the companies that are giving and taking money from OpenAI,
but then those all go to Microsoft.
I hope so, but is Microsoft really going to have a $500 billion or how many ever $1 billion deal with NVIDIA?
Sure. Why not? That would that would be great for Microsoft in the AI wars. This is more of a win for Microsoft than it is for OpenAI.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so worried about what happens when this cookie crumbles and I mean, the stock market is at all-time highs right now, and it's fun while the party's on. You see Microsoft in the pre-market up 3% here. It's fun while the party's on. It's just scary in the meantime.
Yeah. But speaking of which, Qualcomm jumps into the data center wars, right? And so we're seeing Qualcomm jump into this. Now, the interesting thing about this is they announced their AI 200 and their AI 250 chips, which are going to launch in 2026 and 2027, but they're going head to head with NVIDIA and AMD, right? Their stock jumped on this because they're playing smart. They're like, hey, look, we know how to make chips. We
Yep.
can come into this competition. And so, why wouldn't you? Like if you were Qualcomm, this is the smartest move they can make. And they're going to continue to dominate in this space because Qualcomm's been making embedded chips and embedded GPUs for a long time. So as long as we've had smartphones, Qualcomm's been making embedded GPUs. So they know how to take these. Majority of a lot of what run on people's smartphones is a Qualcomm chip, and those GPUs have been running for a long time.
Yeah, you're totally right. You had Qualcomm when they announced this this competition with NVIDIA. They soared 11%, which is 12% on the day, which was around a $24 billion jump. But it's funny because I feel like NVIDIA does a $24 billion deal in an afternoon. And Qualcomm is just such a small company compared to NVIDIA.
Well, what they're doing is, so years and years ago there was a war with razors, things guys shave their face with. And finally, and it was funny because like there was this race from when I was first married, like a single blade razor was really normal, and they went to one razor, and then the next competition went to 2 razors in the head, the next one went to 3 razors in the head, and finally Gillette says, we're not going to 4, screw it, we're going to 5. And they just jumped 4 and went from 3 to 5, and it was this big funny thing. Well, so Qualcomm just did the exact same thing here. Their AI 200 offers 768 gigabytes of LPDDR. So that's equivalent. That's almost exactly the same as 8 H100s in one chip.
Well, kind of what you're talking about with the razors, I'm sure you saw the prices of razors actually go down, right?
Right.
So that's what's a little bit more worrisome is, are you going to see, I mean, you have people buying hundreds of billions of dollars of these chips that they're expecting to hold their value. But if Qualcomm can come out with 8 H100s for 80% of the price, you're going to start to see companies mark down these chips and how much they're actually worth, which is scary in terms of as much as it's crazy to say, I really do feel like the economy is on this teeter totter. I mean, you have Amazon laying off 30,000 people today. 30,000.
Yeah, we could. And that was just from an overstaffing from COVID. It still is. And Jassy's been doing, so I love to tell this story on my channel. So like when you were a senior and you were the starting quarterback of your football team, right? Were you most afraid of losing the game, or were you most afraid of Jack coming in and taking your spot?
Yeah. So my coach had this tactic where he would make the second string feel like he was like just a few plays away from taking my starting spot. And so it was just this constant battle every day between him and I of competing in practice. So I see where you're going with this.
Because Jassy came out with a big memo in June and says AI is going to replace everybody's job. And then he comes out and lays off 10% of the workforce, which, by the way, during COVID, Amazon stepped up 30%, right? They increased their staff over 2 years and by 30% because they knew money was free, right?
Yeah.
So to somebody like Amazon, free money is where it's at. So now they're just slowly laying that off over the years. So this is actually a workforce reduction. This is not because AI has replaced it, but this is that exact same analogy where he's just using a fear tactic to say, you guys better work harder or AI is going to replace your job.
And the thing to think about is these aren't your growth jobs. So the jobs that are the factories that like they wouldn't cut 30,000 factory jobs,
especially not before the holiday
season.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're not going to cut heading into the holiday season. So it is the white collar jobs. But I do, how much of it is it probably is overstaffing, and you see Amazon up, and you saw the stock market up on all-time highs with this.
Mm-hmm. It's just because Amazon's bloated. They overpay and they're bloated, so they know they can get away with it because they pay so much.
But doesn't the question of attrition, like, do you think those 30,000 people are going to be able to go get their same job at a different company again? Do you think the hiring rate is the same as it was? I mean, obviously we know it's not.
Yeah, it's a tough market out there. There's no doubt. It's a tough market. And this is totally a game of Survivor, right? Amazon's just playing Survivor and they're voting they're just voting people off the island. And then this is just another tribal council, right? And this is a bad tribal council. This is one of the tribal councils where Jeff says, we're going to let 2 people go instead of 1, right? Like this is one of those. So it's definitely not like, this is definitely not a comfortable point. And I'm definitely feel really bad for the 30,000 that are going to lose their jobs, because the other part of that is these are people who are overcompensated. So these are 30,000 white collar jobs that Amazon is notorious for overcompensating, because they abuse their people so much that they know that. And so to keep them, they've always overcompensated because they have so much money. And so the problem is these people are going to walk out overcompensated. I'm seeing a lot of the same problem with Intel right now. I have 3 really good friends, and the problem is they were overcompensated at those jobs, and they're trying to go out in the market and going, wait, what? This is what other people are paying? And it's way lower. And so that's the problem that we're going to see with this, is that there will be an overall correction in a lot of these salaries, which have been bloated over the last 5 years because of these companies that started all these hiring gluts during COVID.
What would your advice be if one of those 30,000 people are watching right now?
Dig in and start learning some technology. Get really good at one thing. Gone are the days of saying I'm a hard worker, I'm good at many things. That's gone. But those days are gone. You're not going to get hired by being a hard worker and just being smart. You have to have a very specialized skill. You need to niche down in that skill and then go get hired for that skill. That's exactly the ones who are getting hired, are the ones who have a specific skill set. So for instance, .NET developing is still one of the highest hiring rates. It's still in the top 5 job categories of getting hired. Has been for 20 years, I will say. And so just find something that's slow and steady. Believe it or not, there's actually still COBOL and Fortran developers being hired out there because mainframes still exist. So find some specialized skill and go niche down and go find a job in that skill set. But the reason I'm hearing from everybody's like, oh, it's so hard to find a job, is because their resumes are so generalized.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you saw any AWS or any developers get let go in this. I think it was purely HR.
I think so. I think it's a lot of other. I mean, so Amazon does a ton of fulfillment and supply chain. That's what I'm looking for. Supply chain, right? Amazon's the king of supply chain.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is stuff that is starting to get automated more and more. Now I'm going to use the word automations instead of AI. Amazon's been the king of automation for 20 years. Bezos said he was going to start automating from the day 1. And so I know they just, have recently, I mean, as everybody has recently had a huge Amazon, plant built nearby them. And I've heard that the one nearest to us has a 70% like less people than the previous ones built 5 years ago, that more and more of the machines are being built into these newer plants. And so again, this isn't going to hit fulfillment directly, but if you don't think that's going to, if you don't think that automation and stuff is going to go up into corporate, yeah, you're wrong. And honestly, a lot of their products are aging too. It's like AWS was amazing and was king. And yes, they're still definitely, the largest cloud hosting provider, but they're also the worst. I've never talked to anybody who actually likes hosting with AWS.
I had to cancel an AWS plan, and I had to hire somebody to help me cancel for a few hours because it was too overwhelming.
It's terrible. And their whole system and every other competitor is beating the pants off of them because it's so much easier. And so this is where Azure's laughing to the bank. Microsoft sees that announcement and says, heck yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot going on in the tech world right now. Microsoft is up now 3.5% on the morning with the OpenAI restructuring deal. We could keep going for days. I mean, you had Elon Musk launch the Grokpedia, which it's a little party trick, and I think it's cool. I think it's using the data and using X, and it's cool. And then you have Google trying to revive nuclear. Our demand for power has surged like 400%, but we haven't built any nuclear. And China has only built 400 factories, but they're focusing on nuclear build out. So that's just kind of the stuff that we didn't quite get to today. But I think that the OpenAI restructuring deal is fascinating. I'm excited to see how that plays out. And I liked your perspective on Amazon as well as your perspective on the browser wars. So if people are wanting to make a career change or figure out how they niche down, where do they go?
Startup Hack does have some registered apprentice providers opportunities for folks who are in Utah. But more importantly, like if your company needs help getting your software connected, reach out to startuphack.com/Spencer. We'd love to build custom software for people.
Perfect. I had a ton of fun. Again, this is my father's startup hack. We are the father-son duo every Tuesday morning, episode 15 weeks strong of waking up early on a Tuesday morning, but we have a ton of fun with it. And yeah, like always, if you guys haven't yet, please consider subscribing. That gets us really excited. We love the comments. And yeah, we'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you guys for watching.
All right. Thanks, everybody.